MTN recently announced Sifiso Dabengwa, the current CEO of the company, as the new CEO to seize the reins in March of this year. Now rumours abound that the company may be looking to sell its South African division and move to a more tax-friendly environment. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by Dobek Pater, who's a partner at Africa Analysis. Dobek, thanks so much for coming through. Obviously, a lot is based on speculation. The only truth is Sifiso Dabengwa becoming CEO in March, but a lot of restructuring, for instance, the role of COO being cancelled to introduce the role of a CEO for MTN International. What do you read into all of these things?
Well, it's more than one truth. One is Sifiso becoming CEO of Group, and the other one is potentially a new CEO position at MTN International. So certainly, I think MTN has for a number of years now been more than just a South African company, which maybe some of the stakeholders in the market have failed to recognize, but they've moved beyond that. South Africa now contributes approximately 30% to the group revenue.
Right.
But there are other markets such as Nigeria and Iran, for instance, rising, and once Afghanistan, I think, stabilizes, it's also a potential growth market. So I think for MTN, it's probably becoming more important to try and become also from a location perspective and access to markets and funding perspective, more of a global or international company than just being seen as a South African domiciled company.
As we said earlier, rumours abound that MTN may be selling off its South African operations with the view to move to Dubai. What do you make of those rumours?
Well, I think number one, anything's for sale if the price is right. So whether it's South Africa or another operation, you can never say no. Number two is South Africa can still remain as part of the group, one of the group operations as a jurisdiction, but the company can move to Dubai or elsewhere from an international perspective, a group perspective, and just manage all companies from there. So South Africa effectively becomes just one of the pieces of the MTN puzzle, but it is an important piece nonetheless. So whether it is sold off, I think at the moment it's still strategic for two reasons. One is because of the revenue it generates to the group, and number two, this is still a leading ground for MTN business, which is now has started to move into the fixed line type environment, corporate market segment, moving to small, medium business size. And from the South African base, it is replicated a number of other markets across Africa with the same scenario of expanding the revenue base.
I mean, earlier on you referred to the fact that MTN is now an international company domiciled in South Africa. So there is, to some extent, a case to move it offshore, but how does the case get bolstered by issues of fundraising and tax if they take it elsewhere?
I think, Dubai, for argument's sake, is a strategic location from access to funding to people with money, probably better to be there. There are a number of companies that have chosen Dubai as a base, even though they don't operate in the Middle East per se, but in Africa specifically, but it provides them with a certain advantage. Also, it depends from merger and acquisition and disposable of company assets possibility. It could be a tax advantage that's also being looked at possibly. We've seen currently the case with Vodafone in India, for instance, where Vodafone is aiming to sell its Indian operations and claiming that it's not liable for capital gains tax. The Indian government, because it's not technically speaking an Indian company that is selling that, it's an offshore company, the government is trying to actually counter that. Maybe they will set a precedent in India, maybe not.
Just talking about strategy going forward for the new CEO, people are saying in ICT these days it's all about consolidation. It's no longer about organic growth. It's about a focus on data services, improving on 3G networks and the like. What are the immediate priorities for Sifiso Dabengwa to make the company a lot more relevant, competitive and value for shareholders?
Yeah, I think all of those above, and in Africa especially, in some of the Middle Eastern markets as well, or Central Asian markets, there's still organic growth left. It just depends which market segment you look at. But penetration is still relatively low to developed markets. But for MTN as a group, I think the number of aspects to address. If we still look at M&A activity with consolidation, MTN is placed in a very good position in a number of those markets to become the consolidator or to be consolidated. So that's an opportunity to look at from expansion, particularly into data and IT services. Certainly, I think data is a big point of interest, both on the consumer side, which is more 3G, the mobile data related, and also on the corporate data or managing of corporate data networks. And with that comes the provision of more and more sophisticated IT services. That allows MTN to become more of a holistic telco solutions provider effectively. Another aspect to look at possibly is then partnerships with content providers to start providing content over those data networks, as the data networks themselves become so-called just dumb pipes, and as the data in terms of internet access becomes a commodity, just like voice has become a commodity. And with this comes a price drop, obviously.
Okay.